So let's call the meeting back to order. The question before the committee would, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of amendments to the Berry County Farmland Preservation Ordinance.
For the purposes of discussion, I will make that motion.
Moved by Geiger.
Second.
Support by Parker. Ag Preservation Committee, Ag Promotion Committee. Morning and welcome. It's still morning.
Thank you for having us. My name is Paul Wing. I'm the chairman of the Berry County Agriculture Promotion Board. And I'd like to give you a little background of who and what we are, okay? And why we are here. The State Agriculture Preservation Fund is scheduled to have the first money available for land preservation by October 1, 2019. The first since 2008, and we are taking steps to be ready to capitalize on that availability to preserve some land here in Berry County. That means there will be legal paperwork to get done before and after October 1. And about the properties that we have preserved, there were 33 pages of legal work and forms. And we need professional boots on the ground to do that, do what Dennis Pennington did. Someone who has time, experience, and know-how to get the job done. Sheridan Land Services fits the bill. With us today is Stacy Byers of Sheridan Land Services. Is that correct?
Consulting.
Stacy is the administrator for Kent County and Ingham County Preservation Boards and will present to you a cleaned up farmland ordinance as well as an open space ordinance. She helped write the original ordinance in 2002. Now, just a minute, I'm not through yet.
Sorry.
You might ask why an open space ordinance? That's the thing that we don't have right now. And there have been, and there are now landowners who are requesting a way to preserve land from development that is important to our well-being. Open land absorbs water and filters it, so we have clean water to drink and take showers with. Trees and vegetation use carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. And there is an open feeling, aesthetics, that make Berry County a very good place to live and work. And we have other paperwork to get done, including our bylaws, the application review, the selection form, conservation easements of farmland and open space, the agreement form, the points-based appraisal system, the annual monitoring system, and others. Just a comment about our board. After we had preserved our first property in 2008, the economy went sour, and there were no more funds. That's why since 2008, the state hasn't had money. Soon after that, we were offered a 40-acre parcel, wooded, and the river ran through it, a beautiful property, but because our ordinance didn't recognize open space or donation, we were unable to accept it, and it was not preserved. In 2010, we asked the commission permission to rewrite the ordinance, and it was granted and done in a combined farmland open space ordinance. The commissioners told us to separate it into two ordinances. We did, and they rejected them. Jim McManus was on our board at that time, and so was Joanne Bernard as the administrator. In 2016, the commission rewrote the ordinance and changed the board's name to the Berry County Agriculture Promotion Board instead of the Preservation Board. We tried, but to be very honest with you, we can't compete with the organizations, businesses, universities, Extension, 4-H, FFA, Conservation District, newspapers and magazines, and on, of all the things that are promoting agriculture. It sounds ideal, but it isn't practical for a small, understaffed, underpaid board to take on. So we need and want to get back to the purpose that we were designed to do, preserve farmland and open space to help provide food and fiber, oxygen and clean water. We are asking the Berry County Commission to provide us with the help we need by retaining Sheridan Land Services and to approve the ordinances Stacy will present to you. Thank you. Are there any questions of me?
Paul, I just want to say that thank you for your leadership on this issue. You have been such an advocate and such a blessing to this county that no matter what the committee does or doesn't do, you have made a very positive impact in this county. The different issues that you've dealt with over the past 12 years, a lot of people would have thrown in the towel, but I commend you for your leadership and appreciate your kind words, your remarks today.
And appreciate that, and I do believe in farmland preservation.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have questions for Paul? I give him all kinds of questions every day, so. So Stacy, present to us your
Stacey?
recommendations.
Can I take it?
Yes, you
Oh,
may.
good. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Stacy Byers. I represent a company, a consulting firm that's been working on farmland preservation and open space preservation issues for about 20 years. Of the 30 or so ordinances that are currently among the state of Michigan, my company had a hand in developing about 25 of those. So we have quite a bit of experience with doing farmland preservation and open space preservation ordinances. I guess I'll start by saying that it doesn't matter what county I go to or work in, farmland preservation tends to be, for whatever reason, a very challenging issue. These are new programs. We're relatively new to Michigan, even though they have been going on in the East and West Coast for 30, 40, 50 years. It wasn't really until the late 90s and early 2000 that we really started seeing the momentum for these programs take off. And so we had a large learning curve to overcome in terms of what these programs are, what they did, and what we potentially could see the future doing with these programs. So what the committee was asking of me, I do currently administer the Kent County Farmland Preservation Program and then the Ingham County Farmland and Open Space Preservation Board. To give you a little context with Ingham County, I think it's important to mention most of these programs got started in the early 2000s when we had PA 262 of 2000 passed, which allowed these local units of government to run and administer their own programs. In order to do that, they had to have an ordinance passed, which is what you saw with Berry County when we originally passed this ordinance. Most of those counties that started at that time. And today, only a handful are still up and going because the number one issue, obviously, is funding. And unless you have a viable funding source, it's very challenging to administer these programs successfully. Ingham County has been one of those programs that's been able to do that. In 2008, they asked their constituents to pass a 0.14 millage that would fund farmland and open space preservation in Ingham County for 10 years. In 2008, I can say we passed by the skin of our teeth. Literally, it was a 51 to 49 percentage that got us the win for that funding. We just recently went back to our voters in 2018 and asked for a renewal, and we passed by the largest margin the county really has seen on any other millage. We were over 75% approval rating. So in the areas that we saw a lot of failure in terms of our millage, that 10 years of demonstration and showcasing of what the program can do, I think really spoke volumes to the residents of what they could expect in the next 10 years. So I say that not to toot my own horn, but to give you a little bit of comfort that coming here, I understand how challenging these can be and how hard it is to sometimes understand what they do. I'm here simply to allow for you to perhaps learn from my experiences with these other counties, take that back, and then make some informed decisions about what's best for Berry County. Because it doesn't matter what Ingham County does or what Kent County does. What's important is that we have a program that fits for Berry County and what Berry County wants. It's very encouraging to me when I get to sit in a lot of these communities and feel the pride that these residents and commissioners have for their community. I think it bonds you, and I think one of the reasons that this program could be successful is because you all have such a strong sense of self with who you are with Berry County. A large part of Berry County is your agricultural base. A large part of that is your open space base. And I think that's where this committee had stood when they asked me to come in and help them relook at the ordinance to see if there were any potential ways that they could change it and perhaps revise it to be more efficient and perhaps more in line with what we have going today. And as Mr. Wing said, we are actually at a really critical time. The state of Michigan, after a 10-year hiatus, finally has enough money in the coffer to meet their minimum threshold for an application cycle. So I think you're going to see a lot of these programs that have been trying to stay afloat are now going to start coming again to the surface to get organized and be in a position to capture some of those matching funds that will be available. With that said, the first step was actually getting the ordinance, I think, up to date. And I'll just briefly talk about a few of the highlights of the revisions of the Farmland Preservation Ordinance, and then perhaps you can ask some questions and tell me how you would like to take the conversation or discussion from there. Paul alluded to, I think, one of the biggest changes that I recommended was the changing of the name. The Agriculture Promotion Board, although farmland preservation as an ancillary item to farmland preservation does promote agriculture, that in and of itself is not at all what that board does. To get to the root and the heart of what farmland preservation is, you are actually very specifically purchasing conservation easements, whether those are agricultural conservation easements or whether they are open space conservation easements. And so I think it's important for the board to be clear in terms of its name, of actually what that board's function and charge is, and that is to purchase an interest in real estate, which is a conservation easement. So that was the biggest change. So I recommended the change from the Ag Promotion Board to the Berry County Conservation Easement Board. And that would cover both, obviously, agricultural easements and
But
open
it's harder
space.
to roll off the tongue. Ag promotion. You're adding syllables, but
It is. It is. I agree.
sorry.
No, you're fine. I think the second one was we made some recommendations to the makeup of the board in trying to get that into a more cohesive group and having the lion's share of the representation back to that agricultural body. I think we changed to a 7-member board with 3 of those members representing agricultural interests. And then shuffling around a little bit of the procedures, there is quite a bit of paperwork, as Paul alluded to, and as an administrator of 2 of these programs, I can tell you that the more times you have to go back for checks and balances, the longer it draws out your process. And unfortunately, we do have very specific dates we have to meet, which many of you know and understand with grant deadlines. And getting that paperwork through, if you have to go through various different bodies to get approvals, it really, really encumbers the process. And so the point of making some of those changes was simply to help streamline that process so it was more efficient, but still allowing for the input of these stakeholder groups to be involved, but more on an ancillary level so that the board could actually roll up its sleeve, do the work, and meet the deadlines that they needed to meet. So I guess at your pleasure, I will answer whatever questions or however you want the discussion to go at this time.
Questions for Stacy?
How many other counties have this open space ordinance?
Well, there are not a lot that have open space ordinances. The lion's share came with farmland preservation ordinances. And currently, there's a little over 30 counties that have 33 that have farmland preservation ordinances that deal with just agricultural conservation easements. Some of those are not necessarily counties. They do allow a provision where townships can organize and develop an MOU where they can operate as one entity if the county was not willing to administer it. So there's a couple of those out there. Most notably, the one is the Ann Arbor Greenbelt Program, and they have actually a really robust program with a large funding stream, and they are a compilation of the city of Ann Arbor and then 5 other surrounding townships that have come together to develop their program. The open space preservation program, there's probably about 10 counties that have open space preservation programs and ordinances as well. It's a bit of a natural progression when you start looking at agriculture, realizing that the natural land is there's a lot of synergy between agriculture and these open space lands, and having the 2 ordinances actually makes a lot of sense.
Vivian.
And when you were making your explanation, thank you very much. It was very detailed and very good. You were saying that these are conservation easements for purchase.
Yes.
And who does the purchasing? The county,
The
correct?
Berry County, yes.
So we have to have a funding stream for these purchases.
Yes. And that funding stream can come from a variety of sources. So many of the funding streams that you'll see are actually coming from landowner donations coupled with federal conservation matching funds, the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, and now we have the opportunity for the state of Michigan to come in. So the federal cost share is a 50-50 cost share, where they will match up to 50% of the conservation easement cost. The state program is up to a 75% cost share. So when we actually pencil this out on paper, if we have landowners that are willing to give a donation that could make up that 25% shortfall, the state coupled with the federal program are very likely sources of funding to be able to get one of these done. And there are a lot of tax benefits for landowners that do wish to give a donation. So many of the landowners do give a donation simply because they feel strongly about it. They have a philosophical commitment to it. But they actually receive quite a bit of tax incentives to do that.
I had made several phone calls yesterday, and I talked to, I'm going to hopefully say this right, Wayman Britt from Grand Rapids?
Yes.
Kent County?
Yes.
Sorry. And he explained that they got into this about 12 years ago with
Yes.
an initial investment of $300,000.
Yes.
They had some lands that they were looking at, but he said they really haven't done that very much. He said because of some of the conflicts
Yeah.
with funding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and he was saying that the current board they just don't want to go down that path right now. So, and I can understand that. He said that they were looking more for the board, farmland preservation. I'm not sure what you call it up in Kent County.
We do. The Kent County.
But they were looking more for funding from other sources.
Yes.
Philanthropic,
Yes.
and even for townships to step up
Yep.
and include in, as you said, like the Ann Arbor Green Belt. So I just see some real issues, especially, I mean, we're looking at a couple of big financial commitments here with the jail and the COA. I mean, we don't even know yet where we're going to fund that. I mean, we know where we're looking. I don't know. I have not, this kind of snuck up on me, I guess. It hasn't really been talked about much. So I haven't had any input from my constituents because it's just not really been out there.
I make a comment on the funding. At this point, we are not asking the county commission for any money.
But at this point,
Well, yeah, it might be in time, but I really feel if we got it rolling and got it started, that there would be things that would happen that I still don't think there'd be any county money.
so, and how do you, I'm sorry, Ben, how do you propose the person that's going to do the paperwork for even the farmland preservation issues? I know she works part-time for 2 counties, Kenton, Ingham, is that right?
Non-contiguous counties, too.
Yeah, exactly, so.
In the ag promotion budget, we budgeted for her services last year for this year's cycle. And so those monies are in the ag promotion budget. And then moving forward, we forecasted a budget to help cover her costs. She gave us a breakdown of what funding or what her cost would be to run the application cycle. So it's not anything additional at this time that we would have to add to their budget.
So I just,
Commissioner Geiger had a question first.
I think this is a worthy cause, and I applaud the chair for taking up this issue to help the Ag Promotion Board run even more smoothly. But I remember the cabinet building and how people wanted to have a little more time to digest this. And that was an issue that didn't deal with individual property rights. So I think we should do what we did with the ORV ordinance and have a night meeting where people can come out and discuss the merits of this proposal, and we can answer questions. And like Ms. Byer said, we do need a plan that fits best for Berry County, and we'll get that plan by having an outlet for people to discuss it.
Commissioner Parker.
Isn't this just to recommend the approval of the new amendments?
The motion on the floor, yes, is to approve amendments to this resolution.
Doesn't this put us in a position to maybe be able to get grants easier and other donations and other income that might come into this?
My comments are about the open space thing.
Okay, yeah. So on this particular motion, I don't see how it's going to harm us any by having the amendments changed and put into place that they want to have.
when I read the material, I would like to see them done together, or at least wait, because some of the language I think might be different if the open space weren't passed. That's a question. Is that correct?
I think the language for the farmland preservation ordinance can stand on its own without, even if the open space doesn't pass today. I don't think that it relies on the passage of that ordinance. However, open space definitely relies on the amendments made to the farmland preservation ordinance. There are many references in there because that ordinance would be under the umbrella of the committee, and so it references the original ordinance so that it's the same process that you would go through, just a different type of easement, whether it's open space or farmland. I think that the Ag Promotion Board or the Ag Preservation Board or the Conservation Easement Board, with their makeup, are going to be able to say, yep, this is perfect for open space, this is perfect for ag, or this should be really an easement that combines the two. Because it's a prescriptive easement that you need to have.
Break-even point is 51% agriculture, is farmland. Anything less than that is open space. It's pretty well cut and dried. And that's pretty well done by mapping and or FSA. We work with organizations to find out what those numbers are.
So that was my concern, is because I thought perhaps if the open space didn't pass, that it might change some of the terminology in the farmland preservation ordinance. Sorry.
I think some of the changes that we made are going to be positive for preserving agricultural properties all the way around. But I also think that it sets the stage to be able to have an open space ordinance that's successful. We have a lot of properties in Berry County that have been conserved through the Southwest Conservancy that are conserved, but at the same time, it may cost landowners more money to conserve through the conservancy, where this, they could donate their development rights rather than have to pay for the monitoring of their property in perpetuity. So there's a lot of benefits to our residents for this ordinance. And it allows the landowner to retain their rights as a landowner, their right to sell their land, their and their quiet enjoyment, and to control who is able to visit their property. Sometimes with the Southwest Conservancy, you open that land up for public access, and now you don't have a right to say you can't hike on my land because I want to sit here and watch the deer today. I don't want you to disturb them. You lose some of those benefits as a landowner when you conserve through other agencies. This one,
This one are we talking about?
this ordinance, the open space ordinance, would allow the resident to have more control and would allow, and it would make a tool for Berry County to monitor forever what happens with that property.
I don't know, I think we should try to have a night meeting later this month and discuss it all there, because there are some, I get Dan's point that there's probably some reasons that pass something, pass the tweaks today, but in the scheme of things, it's not going to make a bit of difference if we pass the revisions 3 weeks later than what it's scheduled. So I guess what I'm looking for is a night meeting where people can discuss all this and we talk about these two items there.
Dave?
Yeah, seems like we're blending the two into one, so I'm gonna follow that path at this point just to get a few questions answered. You said the open space ordinance was brought before the county board a few years back,
Yes,
and it was rejected.
yes.
What were the reasons it was rejected?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, may I suggest that maybe there was membership on a commission that that preferred to sell property for development instead
Okay.
of preserving it for food production,
Philosophical.
philosophically.
Okay.
Well put.
And you touched on one of my other questions, which in the body of the presentation there, it said 5 Berry County properties have already been preserved through other conservation entities. So there is a vehicle already in place, apparently, to preserve properties without having an open space ordinance, without adding an ordinance. So are we going to be competing with other conservation
I would
entities?
hope so.
Are we, what's the purpose of having a competing ordinance?
That's actually a really good question, because I think there is confusion about what a county-run program does, what a governmental program does, and what a land conservancy or land trust does. So the conservancies are actually 501c3 nonprofits. So they are non-governmental in existence, basically. So what the county does is purchase, their primary function is to purchase the conservation easements. But because they have the mechanism to be able to hold, administer, and monitor those easements, they're actually a really nice entity to be able to donate to as well. The conservancies and what Commissioner Wing was referring to is when you donate to a conservancy or a land trust, because they're based on philanthropic donations and they do a lot of fundraising, you are straddled with the costs of the ongoing monitoring of that easement in terms of the enforcement and the stewardship issues that come with those. Where the county actually has a functioning program and the mechanism to do that inherently, it does make some sense that we have the program. And they, as you might think, may compete, but they actually do not, because individual landowners, what it does, it just offers them a larger choice, a larger pool to choose from. Would you rather go to a governmental entity, or do you have philosophical reasons for going to a non-governmental entity? And so it allows them to choose which entity they would rather prefer for their donation.
Okay.
And I
Good.
think that Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy tends to be open space land. They do have agriculture, but they tend to do like water conservation things.
Well, and we're blessed in this county to have an ag promotion board and some people who just do a great job. So, I mean, we really are I see some very positive things in this. However, when you start talking about the county purchasing easements, I start thinking about taxpayer dollars. The county now is holding real estate. There's some things I think I need to mentally digest through some of that, because I don't see us as being a good real estate company, but, you know.
Go.
I'll just quickly comment on that, because I think that is a common confusion with this program. And what are we actually doing when we purchase a conservation easement? And when you think of these, it's really easy to think of them or liken it to mineral rights. So we are purchasing one stick in that bundle of rights that all landowners inherently have with private property rights. And their right to do extraction or exploration of subsurface minerals is one stick in that bundle. Their other stick in that bundle is their right to develop. And that's actually what we are purchasing. So it's a nice mechanism to be able to secure what you want to see with that property by also leaving it on the tax roll. Because we are not actually purchasing a fee simple acquisition of that property. We're purchasing one stick in that bundle of property rights. And that is a recorded conservation easement, recorded with the deed, that rides in perpetuity. So the landowner still retains all of the other rights that come with private property ownership of that land. And we are just monitoring and enforcing one specific item in that.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
One thing that Stacy hasn't got through yet, because we have requested that she change some words in our ordinance. That word acquire, we are acquiring the development right. That might come by donation. It might come by state and federal money. It might come by, but we put in the donation thing. So we can accept donated development right purchases, acquires.
And I like the process. I really like our ag promotion board, so I see some benefits to this. Here's my concern. You mentioned purchasing, the county purchasing them. You also mentioned the millage in another county, some things like that. Anytime we're talking about taxpayer dollars or the potential to lead taxpayers to another millage, I think it might be prudent for us to maybe follow Commissioner Geiger's thought with, I would hate for us to vote on something and then have a steady stream of people walking through this door at the next meeting beating us up because they didn't have time to get input on this. And we did the ORV ordinance. I know we had public hearings. We had time for input and information. I think this board is well respected in this community, but I think it would be prudent, as we've went through mute swans and ORVs and some other interesting things in the past, to allow just a little time for public input.
I don't think you can fit mute swans in there, but continue.
But I think it'd be something where if we can garner, I think more information in the public eye may actually garner more support and more understanding for it. If we move without allowing for that, some of that, this may come back to bite us. And I'd feel more comfortable allowing a little bit of time for consideration. It's not that I'm against it. It's just big scope. I asked Michael that question, and he said that I thought with all ordinances we would be required to have public hearings. Apparently with ag, that is not the case. You know, for this, that we would not be required to. However, I think it might be prudent on this board's part to give the public some time to digest and have input on this.
Vivian and then Dan.
So, Stacy, I just really, really appreciate your knowledge and your presentations. I mean, I'm great. I just still, I am just sticking with that purchasing, even if it's just the one stick of development rights, it puts county government in the mix of what someone may want to do with their property. And we're talking forever. We would have it forever. So, I mean, you're talking about county involvement in your property forever. So I just need more time. I need to, like David said, and Ben both, they said, just need to kind of flesh it out a little bit more with the people.
Dan?
I think actually, I'll just echo really quickly. I'm sorry. I think it is actually very logical to hold a public hearing on this issue. I think that makes a lot of sense. And this program has many moving parts, many variables that is very complex. And when you get a public entity or body together and they start asking questions, a lot of things come up that everybody has been wondering but has never had the courage really to ask. And it really does foster a nice conversation and discussion about all of the questions and concerns that you have, because all of these questions and concerns are ones that everybody has. And I say body as in terms of commissioner bodies. Every county that I've ever worked on, these are all issues and concerns that they have. And I think it's a really good practice to go through that so that when you come through at the end of a decision, you're making an informed decision.
Ian?
Yeah, I have no trouble waiting and having a public hearing, and I agree with that. But we've kicked the can down the road so many times. I would like to get a certain date that we have this thing and get it done. So they've been waiting on these kind of things for a long time, and I just think we need to act on it, though, if we're gonna have a public hearing, that we do it.
Right. I would move to table the question until the next night meeting held by the Board of Commissioners or Committee of the Whole. So when we hold night meeting, we'll discuss it.
Township meetings.
I will second that for discussion purposes. I just wanted to clarify his motion. So are you saying that you want the decision made at the night meeting, or just the public hearing and then bring it back?
Well, we have a motion already on the.
Okay, I was just asking that.
So by saying that we're going to postpone this till the next night meeting, that gives the chair flexibility in finding out what are the challenges, or what are the schedule constraints of everybody involved. And I know our professionals probably need to be consulted too. And Stacy brings a wealth of knowledge and experience
Yes.
that would be beneficial for the audience.
Is there any other discussion? And is this a motion to table both,
Madam Chair, since
or just the one that we're discussing? Because this is morphed into, we're discussing both ordinance, one a revision and one the presentation of an ordinance. So
Right.
are you?
I
have
really
you-
do mean both, but since that other one's not on the table, it's only for the ag preservation ordinance. So if there's no objection from the committee, what I would like to do is to table this question and the next question until the next night meeting.
And I'll amend my second to that.
And you
Be consented to the.
okay.
Yeah, that I'm in agreement with
Okay.
him.
So the motion on the table is, the motion before the board is to table the discussion or the approval of the ag preservation ordinance revisions.
In addition to the open space preservation
Well,
ordinance.
there's already a motion on the floor, isn't there, for this?
The supersede.
Yeah, this is on the floor, and so we do need to vote on whether we're tabling that specific one or not, and we can table the,
Yeah, I mean, this
one after
supersedes
it.
it.
no,
to-
because this was a main motion, so your subsequent motion can't do something that hasn't been on the table yet.
You can do it.
Because
Let's vote on just the tabling the motion that's already on the table. So,
I can handle that.
okay. All those in favor of tabling the resolution to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of amendments to the Berry County Farmland Preservation Ordinance, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Nay. Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I would move to table the next item until the next night meeting of the Board of Commissioners or Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Okay, so it was moved by Gibson, second by Connor to
Geiger?
Yeah. We'll get this right. Moved by Geiger, second by Connor, to table the open space preservation ordinance discussion until we can hold a night meeting.
Well,
Or the next scheduled night meeting, which we
Yeah.
have no scheduled night
have none.
meetings.
So this
So,
would go
is there
with,
discussion?
yeah, you gotta have it so everybody can make it. I would think you'd want to have.
You got a lot of township meetings at night.
Yeah, so you'd want to, well, we might be able to skip a township meeting for this, I don't know. But the point being is that we need it seems to me we need a date and if you put a scheduled meeting, that means you got a meeting scheduled, and when is that meeting then?
Can you announce the meeting date by next week's BOC?
Yeah, John's not here, and we'd have to talk to everybody, but I guess you wouldn't have to make the meeting if you couldn't make it. So.
What's wrong with having it at a cow? Talk about that at a cow meeting.
This is a cow meeting, and we are talking about it.
Another cow
It was
meeting,
just
or-
tabled until our next night meeting, which we have no scheduled
No night
night
meetings.
meetings. So have we tabled it indefinitely?
Well, it's up to you, Madam Chair, to schedule that night meeting.
So is this gonna be an autocratic decision where I say we're gonna have a night meeting on this day and nobody gets to voice their opinion on when that meeting is held?
Well, how you
We're
choose
having a
to,
discussion.
how you choose to exercise your power is up to you. But I would hope that you would consult with all of the committee members to find out when the best time to hold a meeting would be and schedule it not too far in the future.
We have a night meeting scheduled on Thursday for that specific board, but it's not a specific
Right.
Board of Commissioner meeting.
So this is a judgment call, and
Michael, do we need time if we are going to have if we're gonna have a public hearing, do we need time to advertise that? Is it 2 weeks? What's the,
it's not a public hearing. It's,
not a public
No,
hearing,
we're
okay.
rescheduling a commissioner meeting.
right.
But of course, from a practical standpoint, you'll want to give adequate time. We can put it on the website, and we will. It depends if you want to try to advertise it in any way as a public hearing or just notice a night meeting.
Don't have any meetings on Friday nights.
Nope,
I don't think there's any township meetings on Friday nights.
nope.
I deserve this punishment, I guess.
Yep.
Are you thinking of just having a meeting for just this topic, or are you going to roll it into like a board meeting and reschedule, like the board meeting of the 26th?
We're not here on the 26th, we meet on the 25th.
Oh, that's right.
And that is a board meeting, not a committee of the whole, and we,
And you wanted it a committee.
yeah.
We left it ambiguous, so you could decide what's best. This is really you don't need a vote to hold a meeting. You can call a meeting.
We do it late, after the meeting on the 25th, back-to-back meetings. Everybody's here.
They've been moved, the motion was to move it to a night meeting, which
Well,
means
it
a
could
PM
run into the
meeting.
night.
But you could.
We haven't voted on it yet.
Nope, but that's the motion.
Yeah, right.
But we already. I'm sorry. I'm not.
Mr.
recognized.
Vanderbilt.
If you're gonna seek public input on this, you ought to be advertising it as a public meeting and, public hearing. I mean, having it along with the night commission meeting. First of all, you don't have room in here if you're gonna expect the public to show up or whatever, so. I mean,
No,
if that's what you're seeking is public input, then just adding it to your agenda is not going to achieve that, I would believe.
RV1 open meeting we had was at the circuit courtroom.
Downstairs.
I think most of us could be excused for one township meeting to not show up for that meeting because of another meeting. I don't think that's that critical. And also, I agree that it should be a public hearing. I mean, if we're trying to get input on it,
I was talking about public hearing in a legal sense, but we should advertise it as this is a,
An open meeting.
yeah, public hearing.
I think you'd want in the Titan Center because of security here at night. And this place is locked up at night. You don't want to go to the Titan Center.
It's a great idea.
As many people as the circuit court room.
No, but you'd have to have security presence here in the evening because of the building being locked. In the Titan Center, we could do something different.
I think the last time we did something like this would have been the Toast meeting that we
And we
had
met
at
at
the
school.
school. But I don't know if there's that much interest, I'm sorry, but there may not be that much interest that we couldn't do it in the Titan Center. I mean,
Third Tuesday of March is March 19th. That is a traditional Board of Commissioner cow meeting. Can we double check the schedule to see if Titan is available that night?
We can, absolutely. Getting to the notification, are we planning to advertise it in the local paper or the like that to?
If we're changing the time of our meeting, we still have to advertise it, and we should probably advertise it as a public hearing.
I guess
We
that's
do
the
have
question,
money
is do you
in the
want to
budget.
treat it as a public hearing, or do you want to treat it as a public meeting to discuss the subject? If you want to treat it as a public hearing, I think we're probably going to want to look at more than
One event.
a week and a half, the 2-week time frame that we're at for the meeting on the 19th, because you'd want to then advertise in a
Get it in a
paper
few
of
cycles.
circulation. The banner comes out on Thursday. We've missed that deadline for this week, so we wouldn't be able to get it into the banner until the 14th, which doesn't offer an awful lot of advance notice for a meeting on the 19th. We'd probably want to look to
April 2nd.
something.
April 2nd would be a
later.
great date. That gives us plenty of time.
And how many township meetings are we gonna upset on the second Tuesday of the month?
On the first Tuesday of the
Or
month?
yeah, the first Tuesday,
I just-
sorry.
I don't
Orangeville.
have,
I don't have any.
I don't have any.
But, I mean, that's okay. I mean, it's just me apparently, and they would understand
Orangeville
that.
likes you.
They do.
Is that going to be our regular meeting? Our regular meeting?
We don't want to have it on
Let's do
April
our-
1st.
We won't
Well,
come here
April
in the
2nd,
daytime
we
then.
move it, the cow
Thursday.
meeting
Let's
to the
combine it all in
evening.
one. We'll have our cow and our public hearing at the same meeting.
Yeah, I think we should advertise it just like we did the Toast hearing. Not put money behind it, but send out a press release and make it.
I don't think we need to
I
do a
hate to be the fly
survey.
in the ointment, but I am going to be in Alabama on Tuesday, April 2nd. Sorry.
So, why don't we?
I can go to Alabama if you
Well, yeah,
want.
sure. It's been a cold winter.
Yes.
So we're back to, do we want to have a special meeting to discuss it outside of Board of Commissioner meeting, cow or other?
I'm free on the 28th, which is the Thursday of March, 28th of March. I mean, if you want to do special.
28th of March is is that the Board of Health meeting?
Yeah, but that's in the morning.
Okay. Are you available on the
Yeah.
28th? So let's check with the Titan schedule and make sure that the room is available at what time? 7? 6:30?
Well, you're looking at March the 28th now?
March 28th.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't mean to offend whoever might be using the room, but we kind of have.
That's just to discuss this issue, right?
And then if Titan's not available, we'll check out the
The
courtroom.
circuit
Yeah.
courtroom, I mean, we can, I don't remember what we did.
We've been to the COA before, too.
Yeah,
And you got 911, which holds a lot of people out there. That's a good meeting
It does.
room.
So
it's
let's
a
check
farther drive for her side.
room availability and.
And you're gonna move the cow
Stacy,
from
does
the
that work in your
26th
schedule?
to the
March
28th, or
28th
just
is
a
wide
special
open.
meeting?
Okay.
I
That
just
works
wanna make
great.
sure I understand.
Special meeting,
It's on the 28th?
March
Yeah, on
28th.
Thursday.
6:30, 6:30, 7?
Seven.
Seven's fine.
Yeah, people-
Sorry, Stacy.
Fine.
Okay, so we're having a public meeting,
Town hall meeting,
town hall meeting.
On the 28th.
No public hearing.
the town hall meeting.
Sure,
Okay.
town
And
hall
a cow
meeting.
meeting. So,
No,
No, the cows beat that Tuesday before that.
okay.
no.
Oh, it'd be the Monday.
25th, we have a Board of Commissioner meeting
Right,
on
it'll be the
Monday
Monday.
because we have the MAC conference.
Right.
And then the cow meeting will not happen until April 2nd, as normally scheduled. So this
Yeah.
will be a special meeting.
Just glad we're not doing Friday nights. I mean, as much as I like you guys, I mean, spending Friday night at a county board meeting.
Bonding time, come on.
It's not as bad as milking cows on a Friday night, Ben.
Yeah.
You can play that card all the time, though.
Drawing the public in either, have it on a Friday night.
Right.
It's not conducive
Might
to
be
Let's
the-
go to a town
fun
hall.
public. All right, so the motion is to,
We don't have a motion.
we don't have a motion, we
I
did
would
move to
move to-
table it till this date. So is this date gonna work?
28th,
March
yeah.
28th at 7 PM, where the
Location
schedule
TBD.
allows.
Location to be known later.
Location to be determined. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Me? Nay. I think we should decide today, but that's my prerogative, so. Thank you. Motion is approved.
You.
So then, open space preservation ordinance,
We
discussed that evening too.
Yeah.
Been moved and seconded, moved by Geiger, support by Gibson, to table the open space preservation ordinance to discussion on March 28th at the special meeting, the town hall meeting at 7 PM. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye, or nay. Motion is approved.
You technically did say aye first.
No, I meant nay.
Thank you, Stacy.
All right.
That was great, that was
Thank
great
you, guys.
information.
Thank you, folks.
It was a very good presentation.
Good presentation.
Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Your time's up. Took you 3 minutes to walk up there.
Take your badge off.
I figured you missed me. Jim Dell, Berry County resident, property owner. Past 4 years on the Ag Promotion Board. I would strongly urge you guys to move this along, the open space especially, and the ag part. Mike Timmons, the township supervisor down in Assyria Township, is a very forward-thinking man. And he says, look down in the future, 50 and 100 years. Agricultural promotion, the ordinance is wonderful for preserving agricultural land, and we definitely need to do that. I mean, we don't want to lose our food source. But open space covers anything that's not 51% or more in our county. When I was on the commission, we had a vision, I guess you'd call it, forward thinking, that this was going to be a place for people to come here for tourism and stuff like that. If we don't keep the open space, we're going to lose that. I mean, people come to Berry County because it's beautiful to drive around and look at all the different things. If we lose that over the next 100 years, you know, if we do only the ag promotion, we may have all flat fields. If we don't do any of it, we're going to have downtown Grand Rapids. So I would hope you guys would really consider moving this along, getting people on board. When I was on there, the thought of purchasing didn't sound good to me, but if you go into the background of it, to be able to accept state and federal funds, you have to have that line in there. I think there's a lot of people around here that would donate their rights. I'm one of those that wants to rule from the grave. I'll be the first to admit it.
Sorry.
I live 3/4 of a mile from where I was born. 55 years later, that property is the same. I would love it for the next 1,000 years to be exactly the same as what it was. So, thank you.
Any further public comment?
Sure. My name is Larry Neal, and I'm also a member of that, what we call Ag Preservation Board right now. And, you know, I sat back there listening to all of you, and the number one thing that came to my mind was, you just don't understand. And so my suggestion to you as a board is individually, take that home and read it, and then read it again, and then write down all the things you have a question about. Call Stacy and she'll explain it, or call one of us. If you understand this, you will see that it's a big part of our future. That you know, the man who owns Zeeland Farm Services, the biggest purchaser of soybeans, says he needs 1 million acres of soybean land in Michigan every year, and that's growing. Well, we have to get these things preserved. Every year I get a chance to block off my mile of frontage on paved roads for lots and so on. I'm of a nature or a notion that I don't want to do that, but I know that there are people looking for the highest dollar, and so maybe the person that owns it now wants to preserve it, but it doesn't really have a method. Just one last thing. We talked about Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. A friend of mine donated her 70 acres to that program. When it got all done, they asked for their $5,000 check. She could have donated that to open space if we had that, and it wouldn't have cost her anything. So as far as the county owning these things, those other counties own those development right easements, and it's nothing to them. And they've studied that, and they realize that it's just really like putting something in a file. So I would really encourage you to, number one, get to know more about the language in that, and become comfortable with it. Thank you.
Any further public comments? Sorry.
Here, Larry's.
Tearing up my house.
Appreciate that, Bob.
Yeah, Bob Vanderbilt, Hastings Township. I guess I'll beat a different horse. I think we've heard a lot of good support on the previous one, but I would support previous comment. I've been sitting here saying your name all along, and starts with a B. Miss Barnum. Ms. Barnum's earlier comment about the health department and Berry County, again, owning their own health department. And I hear from a lot of younger people, a few, not a lot, I guess, but I hear from younger people when they go to build a house or try to strike out on their own piece of property or whatever, that the cost of permits for everything. I talked to a young fellow the other day, and he had like $3,000 in permits just on a bare piece of land to build a house. And understanding that a health department's budget is partially funded by permit fees, if we were to have our own health department and have a control on that budget, as was Ms. Barnum alluded to, then I think overall in the county, and I've mentioned this before, that I think a benefit to all of the citizens of the county, not just the cost of county government, potentially could lower these permit fees and take some of the ouch out of trying to develop a piece of property. So I think there's other things to think about other than just the cost of the county government of running a health department, but also the benefit to the citizens of the county-wide, that potentially their burden on permitting fees certainly I think could be lowered, especially the one that seems to be, environmentally anyway, seems to be the raised mound system, which is I think pushing over $700 for just a permit to put one of those things in. So I think there's other things to look at just other than the cost of the county. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Is there any other business to come before the committee? There being no further business and without objection, the committee will now adjourn.